Alright, so we're going to progress and talk a little bit about what this thing is, holistic theology. The term holistic theology, I would say, is a very contemporary term, and not a lot of people use it. Certainly the Institute for Holistic Theology uses it, and I would say there are probably people in the world of psychology and self-help, and more of what we might call the New Age community and the interfaith community that might use this term. But for most people, this would kind of be a bit of a unique expression. And what I'm going to simply give you is my own definition of it, my own relationship to it, but that doesn't mean that's the textbook definition. So to me, first of all, I like to think of a holistic theology as opposed to holistic theology, meaning there isn't one capital H, capital T tradition called holistic theology, which you can buy the book and everyone can do the same thing. When people are talking about holistic theology, really they're talking about an approach. So it's an approach to theology. Theology being the study of God, or we could expand that and say that the study of ultimate meaning, which is kind of how I define God. So people who are embracing a holistic theology or a holistic approach to their theology, regardless of their religion, essentially recognize that the totality of the human experience can be brought to their spiritual journey. That it's not just a mind game, I have to have the right beliefs. It's not just a physical game, I have to do the right practice. It's not just an emotional game, I have to be devoted enough. And it's not just a soulful game, meaning, well, either I'm picked or I'm not. Right? Salvation is just up to something outside of me. And what we find is that different traditions do have biases in terms of what they think is going to get you there. So my first slide, my cover image was a boat. And the reason why I use the image of a boat is because it's a helpful image when we think about spiritual traditions. If we think of them as vehicles, what's going to get us there? So for example, I use Zen Buddhism as an example. Stereotypically or characteristically, Zen Buddhism is really about reducing as many of these areas as possible in our experience. We want to use the mind to overcome our attachment to the body, our emotions, even spiritual debate and dialogue, so that almost like painting ourselves into a corner with invisible ink, we can eventually think ourselves out of existence. But other traditions have used the mind focus differently. For example, some of you have heard of orthodoxy. Okay, orthodoxy actually literally means right belief. So the orthodox traditions originally were basically traditions that said you have to have the right mindset about what and who God is, or you're not going to be saved, or you're not going to get into heaven. It's not about service. You can be nice to people. You can help the world. It's not about devotion. You can love God. But if you don't think right, if you don't have the right story, you're not getting in. I gave yoga as an example as the platform of a tradition. So people that have a yogic-focused tradition, even though yoga is much more than physicality, but people who practice it in that way would see it as a very physical tradition. Native American traditions tended to be very physical traditions as well. And then we find there's a whole realm of traditions, including within, I would say, like the last 1,000 years of Christianity, that are very, very heart-centered, meaning it's devotional. So it's about your personal relationship with Christ or with God. So the heart's got to be in there. And if God hasn't been born or awakened in your heart, it doesn't even matter what you think. So the point is that it's been possible, and it continues to be possible, for people of different faith groups and theologies to divide the focus. And so in my experience and my belief, the holistic approach says we want to engage ourselves fully in our belief system, fully in our tradition, or fully in our pursuit of spirit. So whether it's okay, I'm a Christian, so I'll be more specific. I'll use Catholic again. I'm Catholic, so I'm going to go to the rituals. I'm going to practice with a full heart and cultivate that devotional relationship every day of the week. I'm going to trust that there is a metaphysical reality that will choose my soul for salvation, elevation, that's what I was going to say. But I'm also going to make sure that I study the tradition, I read the Bible, I go to the study group, and I make sure I get it right up here. The modern experience, however, is typically a little bit different. It's a little bit more like the woman that emailed me and said, well, I'm, what did I say, Baptist? I think she was Baptist. And she was like, I get that, and my heart's Baptist, but I'm not sure my mind is because I'm enjoying yoga, and I feel most connected to nature when I'm to God and Spirit when I'm outside. Am I in trouble? And my answer was, well, it depends who you ask, but as far as I'm concerned, you're not in trouble, you're a human. And that means that she has a natural propensity for a holistic theology, and that means a holistic pursuit of a connection to something greater, and she's just doing it through whatever works in each of the areas. And that's a very, very normal thing. Now, of course, if you come from the intra-faith perspective, that starts to look dangerous. If you come from the interfaith perspective, it's fine. It's like, as long as you don't lose sight of who you are and you remain on the path, we're good. So, something that also helps to look at this is what I call spiritual personality. And I talk a little bit about spiritual personality in Return to the Sacred, and I also did a book on this, or an audio series. I think I have there it is. It was this one. An audio series all about spiritual personality. But one of the things I want to touch on before we conclude is that I truly believe in this thing called spiritual personality. And what spiritual personality means is just like every other area of our life where we have natural tendencies to like country music or opera, to like chocolate or vanilla, to like water sports or gardening, we also have certain propensities or tendencies in our spiritual life. And I actually think that the assumption that we are homogeneous, or we are all the same, homogeneous, in our soul, it is something that actually gets a lot of people in trouble. Because we're really not homogeneous in our soul, or homogeneous. We're not all the same. We are born with different inclinations and aptitudes, and that translates right into our spiritual life as well. So there are what I would call the people that are naturally the body types. So those are the people that naturally feel most comfortable in a practice that's physical. And if you're a body type, then right about now in this presentation, you're feeling like, I'm glad he's wrapping up soon because I got to get up and move. For the mind types, they're like, wait a second, did he say he's wrapping up soon? I haven't even finished making my notes. I wanted to say more about spiritual personality. How does this apply to that other theory? And then I remember something I read. That's the mind type. They're busy upstairs. So they like to study. They like analysis. They like language. They like deconstruction. But then we have the heart types. The heart types, it's got to be relational. It's got to be emotional. So they don't even, they might do yoga, they might read a book, they might, do the sacred rites in the church or the synagogue. But if they don't feel engaged emotionally to the community, to their spiritual leader, or to God itself, if there's not an emotional connection, it's just not even happening. It's just not happening. These people in a presentation tend to like stories more than they like frameworks. They tend to like the exercises where we get to talk about it because it's relational. But then there's the soul types, and those are those sort of freaky, rare individuals, which probably counts for many of us listening to this right now.